Hello and welcome. Today we delve into a secret so profound it changed the course of history. An unbreakable code that confounded even the most advanced cryptographers of World War II. Behind the scenes of a global conflict, a language as ancient as the mountains itself was transformed into a weapon far more powerful than any missile or battleship. Have you ever wondered how the United States managed to keep their military communications hidden from enemies for years? What if I told you that the Japanese masters of code breaking spent months trying and failing to decipher a message that was virtually unbreakable? Could the secrets of a remote Navajo language be the key to victory? And what if this language, so complex and unique, was used to create the ultimate military cipher, one that stood undefeated against every attack? All these questions lead to one central mystery. How did the Navajo language become the backbone of America's most secure communications during World War II? And why, decades later, did Japan's most elite cryptographers realize they had been listening to the only unbroken code in modern military history? In this video, we will trace the incredible journey from a remote desert reservation to the height of wartime espionage, revealing how a native language was weaponized to safeguard secrets and outwit enemy spies. We will uncover the story behind the Navajo code talkers, the technological marvels of cryptography, and the astonishing resilience of a language that defied all attempts at decoding. Get ready. What you're about to learn will rewrite everything you thought you knew about secret codes and wartime innovation. The true story begins right now, at the dawn of a new kind of warfare, where language itself became the ultimate shield. March the 15th, 1944. An unassuming date etched into the annals of wartime history, yet beneath its surface lay a complex tapestry of intelligence and secrecy. Within the subterranean depths of the Japanese Naval Intelligence Headquarters, specifically within the Ada Communications Unit nestled near Tokyo, Commander Atsuzo Kurihara sat hunched over his desk, gazing intently at the cryptic messages that had just been intercepted. His third cup of bitter, steaming tea had long since cooled, forgotten amid the pressing urgency of his task. For nearly a full day and night, 18 hours to be precise, he and his team of Japan's most skilled cryptanalysts had dedicated themselves to decoding what appeared to be a series of tactical communications from the American Marine Corps, originating from operations in the distant Marshall Islands. The sounds transmitted through their listening devices defied all conventional analytical methods. Every attempt to unravel the signals had been met with frustration, as the patterns exhibited a level of complexity that challenged even their most advanced decoding techniques. It was as if the messages were deliberately crafted to be unreadable, yet subtle clues hinted at a deeper, more organized structure. The signals were not mere random noises or static. Instead, they displayed a discernible pattern, timing sequences that preceded American military actions, durations that aligned closely with strategic operational commands, and frequency usage that matched established Marine Corps communication protocols. Despite these signs of order, the actual language conveyed within the transmissions remained entirely impervious to their understanding, unlike anything documented in their extensive archives of Allied communication systems. Commander Kurihara, leading one of the most sophisticated signals intelligence operations in the world at that time, knew the significance of this silence. His facility, located approximately 20 miles outside Tokyo, employed a formidable team of 500 personnel. These experts operated a complex network of 118 radio receivers, along with 20 direction-finding units, all working tirelessly to intercept and analyze enemy transmissions. Historically, their efforts had borne fruit. They had successfully deciphered American diplomatic traffic, cracked British naval communications, and broken through numerous Army codes. Their most notable achievement was the clandestine decryption of the United States Purple Code, a diplomatic cipher that had safeguarded high-level communications. And this breakthrough had granted Japan a vital advantage during the early years of the war, especially before the attack on Pearl Harbor gave the United States an upper hand. Yet these recent Marine transmissions represented a cryptographic enigma that even Japan's most elite cryptographers could not solve. After years of success breaking dozens of Allied codes, the fact that they could not find even rudimentary patterns in the Marine communications was a matter of grave concern. Despite their advanced methods and extensive experience, these signals seem to be a fortress of unbreakability. What Kurihara and his team did not realize, what no Japanese intelligence officer would realize until long after the war, was that they were listening to the only unbroken code in the history of modern military communication. It was a cipher so sophisticated and resilient that it had withstood every attempt at decryption, standing as a testament to the ingenuity and secrecy of its creators. To understand how such a code could exist, one must journey back not to the Pacific Theater, but to the American Southwest, where a language as unique as it was ancient had been preserved by the Navajo people for centuries. Their language, known as Navajo or Diné-Bazad, belongs to the larger Athabascan language family, and by 1940, approximately 170,000 Navajo speakers still preserved their linguistic heritage. During this period, their reservation, spanning roughly 27,000 square miles across Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado, remained a remote sanctuary where their language and culture could thrive away from the encroaching influence of outsiders. The linguistic features of Navajo are extraordinarily complex and would eventually confound even the most skilled cryptographers. Its structure is primarily centered around verbs, with actions conveyed through intricate prefix combinations that can number in the millions, allowing for a vast array of expressive possibilities. The language employs 4 distinct tonal qualities, high, low, rising, and falling, that serve as fundamental modifiers, capable of completely altering the meaning of a word with even a slight tonal change. This tonal complexity meant that a small mispronunciation could transform a coherent sentence into an unintelligible string of sounds, rendering attempts at translation or decryption exceedingly difficult. Moreover, Navajo phonology includes sounds absent from many other languages, including Japanese and English. These unique phonemes encompass ejective stops, sounds produced with an explosive burst of air using the glottis, and voiceless lateral fricatives, which produce a wind-like sound as air passes through the teeth. The language also features glottalized sonorants and nasalized vowels, further complicating accurate reproduction by non-native speakers. For a Japanese linguist trained in a language with only 5 basic vowel sounds, distinguishing and accurately producing these complex phonemes was virtually impossible. This rich tapestry of sounds combined with the language's structural complexity, Johnston recognized the immense strategic value embedded within this linguistic fortress, understanding its potential as a formidable tool of warfare. Born in the year of 1892 to a Protestant missionary working on the Navajo reservation, Johnston was immersed in the Navajo language from a young age. Growing up in that environment, he became one of fewer than 30 individuals worldwide, not Navajo by birth, to attain fluency in this complex language. His mastery was so profound that by the tender age of 9, he was already translating sermons delivered by his father, bridging the spiritual messages between Navajo speakers and English audiences. As he reached his mid-teens, Johnston's linguistic talents led him to Washington, where he translated for Navajo leaders, even engaging with President Theodore Roosevelt in official capacities. Fast forward to December of 1941, when America was reeling from the shock and chaos following the attack on Pearl Harbor. Johnston came across reports indicating that Army units in Louisiana were employing Comanche speakers during training exercises. Although the Choctaw had previously served during World War I, their efforts had been largely ad hoc and limited in scope. Johnston, however, envisioned something groundbreaking, an organized, systematic military code built upon the Navajo language that would be both unbreakable by enemies and practical for the exigencies of modern combat. His idea was revolutionary, a coded communication system rooted in a native language, capable of secure transmission during intense wartime conditions. On the 28th of February in 1942, Johnston took a crucial step forward by presenting his detailed proposal to Major General Clayton Vogel at Camp Elliott, situated near San Diego. The demonstration that followed was nothing short of extraordinary. 4 Navajo men from Los Angeles were tasked with transmitting messages in real time, while Marine officers monitored and timed their efforts against standard cipher procedures. The results were staggering. These Navajo code talkers completed their transmissions in approximately 20 seconds, whereas the traditional M209 cipher machine required about 30 minutes to decode the same message. Such a stark contrast in speed and security convinced Major General Vogel to authorize a pilot program to explore this innovative concept further. By May the 4th of 1942, a group of 29 Navajo recruits was sworn into service at Fort Wingate, located in New Mexico. Among these pioneering men were notable figures such as Chester Nez, Carl Gorman, Lloyd Oliver, and John Bennerly. They hailed from different parts of the reservation, representing a diverse cross-section of Navajo society. Some had attended boarding schools where speaking Navajo was strictly forbidden and often punished, an experience that had made their native language almost a secret code of its own. Others were traditional sheep herders, whose lives were closely tied to the land and who rarely ventured beyond their ancestral territories. At Camp Elliott, these recruits endured rigorous training within a secure, guarded facility for 8 weeks. During this period, they dedicated themselves to developing a military code based entirely on their native language, a task of monumental difficulty. They had to create terminology for modern military concepts that previously had no Navajo equivalents, invent a writing system or alphabet, and ensure that the code was both easy to memorize and capable of expansion for future needs. Their approach was rooted in cultural logic. For example, they assigned the word for submarine as bestow, envisioning an iron fish swimming beneath the surface of the ocean. A battleship was called lot whale, likened to the ocean's largest creature, and fighter planes were dubbed da hummingbirds, darting swiftly through the air. Bombers were named jashao, reminiscent of buzzards circling ominously before swooping down. Developing the alphabet was equally challenging. Each letter in the Navajo-based code needed multiple words to prevent enemy code-breaking techniques such as frequency analysis. For example, the letter E, being the most common in English, was represented by 4 different Navajo words like ana, meaning elk, I, meaning tear or hair, A, meaning ear, and other variants to ensure unpredictability. The code talkers would then alternate randomly among these options during transmissions, effectively destroying any detectable patterns. They meticulously memorized over 211 initial terms, ensuring that everything could be recalled instantly, as there could be no room for error or reliance on physical code books that might be captured by enemy forces. Chester Nez vividly recalled the intense training, stating, "We drilled endlessly. A mistake could cost lives. In our culture, words have power. Speaking correctly was sacred." This deep cultural reverence for language underscored the seriousness with which they approached their task, understanding the life-and-death nature of their contribution. The first military test of this Navajo code came during the Battle of Guadalcanal in August of 1942. A contingent of 15 code talkers was deployed with the 1st Marine Division. Despite the Japanese having successfully deciphered some other Allied communications, the Navajo code proved impenetrable. As Marine tactical messages were transmitted in Navajo, they suddenly became unintelligible to the enemy. During the tumultuous times of the early 1940s, the Allied forces faced a formidable challenge in deciphering a strange and unbreakable code used by the Japanese military. Lieutenant Kazuo Yamada, who had received a rigorous education at Stanford University prior to the outbreak of hostilities, was among those who meticulously analyzed the mysterious transmissions. He reported that, although these signals possessed a structure reminiscent of language, exhibiting consistent patterns, there was no recognizable correspondence to any known tongue. They did not resemble English, French, Dutch, Spanish, any dialects from the Philippines, nor Chinese dialects. Instead, the sounds seemed entirely foreign, utterly alien to any linguistic category familiar to the cryptanalysts. In response, the Japanese military adopted a systematic approach to break this enigma. They committed their most skilled cryptographers and linguists to the task, recording hundreds of hours of these transmissions on wax cylinders, applying every conceivable analytical technique. They even engaged university linguists and Buddhist monks, renowned for their knowledge of ancient languages, in hopes that some insight might be gained. Yet despite these exhaustive efforts, nothing meaningful emerged from their analyses. The breakthrough came unexpectedly on the 8th of November in the year 1942. A Navajo code talker named Chester Nez transmitted artillery coordinates that proved crucial in destroying a Japanese machine gun nest. The entire transmission lasted barely 14 seconds, yet it was intercepted by American forces and decoded as meaningless noise by the Japanese operators. Almost instantly, American artillery shells rained down with pinpoint precision on the enemy position. Colonel Haruo Konuma, an intelligence officer for the Japanese 17th Army, later lamented with frustration, "The Americans have deployed a code that defeats every attempt. We can no longer predict their attacks. We are fighting blind." Among those who became a symbol of this unbreakable code was Joe Kalumia, a Navajo soldier captured at Bataan in April of 1942. Although fluent in Navajo, he had no knowledge of the secret military code that was being developed and used by the Americans. When Japanese cryptographers intercepted Navajo transmissions, they brought Kalumia to an interrogation center at Ona, where they played recordings of the code talkers. Kalumia could hear Navajo words, but the combination sounded completely meaningless, like "the turtle is attacking the iron fish," or "the hummingbird carries eggs." Unable to translate these phrases, he was accused of lying. The interrogators escalated their tactics over many months, subjecting him to systematic torture, waterboarding, beatings, and hanging by his arms for hours on end. During the winter of 1943, they even forced him to stand unclothed in the snow until his feet froze solidly to the ground. They starved him, offering food only as a reward for truthful translations. Despite enduring unimaginable suffering, Kalumia repeated only the truth. He understood the Navajo words but did not grasp their military significance or the code's underlying logic. An intelligence report from May of 1943 documented this frustration. The Japanese believed the prisoner appeared to speak a native language of mystery, but was incapable of understanding the message's meanings. The report noted that perhaps Kalumia's resistance was extraordinary, or that the enemy was using a specialized code within the Navajo language itself, one that demanded specific, targeted training to comprehend. Indeed, the second possibility proved to be correct. Even Navajo speakers fluent in their native tongue struggled to understand the coded messages without prior instruction. Kalumia survived an arduous 3.5 years in captivity, and his inability to assist the Japanese intelligences in decoding the messages convinced them that they faced an unprecedented and formidable obstacle. By late 1943, the Japanese had largely given up trying to decipher Navajo transmissions. Their success at the Battle of Guadalcanal, however, prompted the United States to expand their use of Navajo code talkers dramatically. Major General Alexander Vandergrift expressed the importance of this linguistic innovation, stating, "The Navajo communicators have proven invaluable. Their transmissions are faster than any encoding device and utterly secure." This recognition led to the establishment of a formal training program at Camp Pendleton, where classes for future code talkers began every 8 weeks. By the conclusion of the war, between 375 and 420 Navajo Marines had served as code talkers across all 6 Marine divisions. Their training was unlike anything seen in the Marine Corps before, rigorous, specialized, and designed to instill the secrecy and speed necessary for battlefield communication. These Navajo soldiers, through their unique language and unwavering loyalty, became an essential and highly effective element of the Allied war effort, their contributions shaping the course of military history in ways that would be remembered long after the conflicts had ended. During their training, recruits honed their skills within specially designed soundproof booths that shielded them from external noise, allowing them to focus entirely on mastering complex cipher techniques. Meanwhile, instructors simulated battlefield sounds, such as gunfire, explosions, and radio chatter, to familiarize the trainees with the auditory environment they would face in combat. These recruits, often operating under extreme conditions, would transmit coded messages while wearing gas masks, even as they ran and endured physical exhaustion, testing their resilience and ability to maintain clarity amidst chaos. One notable enlistee, Thomas Bay, who had joined the military at the tender age of 15, vividly recalled the intense pressure of these training sessions. He recounted that the instructors constantly pushed them beyond their perceived limits, emphasizing that the accuracy of their transmissions could mean the difference between life and death. The code itself was not static. It evolved relentlessly, adapting to new threats and technological innovations. As the military developed new tools and methods, the vocabulary used in the codes expanded and shifted. For instance, the atomic bomb, a newly developed and highly classified weapon, was cleverly referred to as Ayashi, meaning metal egg, reflecting the Japanese code's tendency to assign metaphorical or oblique terms to critical assets. Similarly, pilots from the kamikaze school, who specialized in high-altitude flight, were called neti, translating to death wind, a term that conjured images of deadly air currents. These cryptic designations made sense to Navajo speakers familiar with the language's logical structure, but appeared utterly baffling to outsiders attempting to decipher the messages. By the middle of the year 1943, Japanese intelligence agencies dedicated substantial resources to breaking the American code. The Imperial Navy's Cryptography Division, specifically its 4th section, assigned about 30 cryptone analysts solely to analyze and interpret the intercepted transmissions. Captain Yoshiro Tanaka, leading one of the key teams, experimented with unconventional methods in hopes of cracking the code. These included applying musical analysis to detect tonal patterns within the transmissions, comparing the sound patterns to recordings of Native American speech and music, and consulting scholars who had studied indigenous languages and dialects in the United States. To assist these efforts, they developed specialized recording equipment capable of slowing down the transmission signals without distorting the pitch, thus enabling more detailed analysis. Additionally, they employed oscilloscopes to produce visual representations of the sound waves, turning intangible audio into observable data. They also applied statistical techniques to analyze sound frequencies and recurring patterns, seeking clues hidden within the sounds themselves. Lieutenant Commander Masao Yamada later disclosed that these efforts yielded some insights. Certain patterns and probable call signs could be identified, and there was a correlation between message length and the complexity of the operation. However, without understanding the actual words or context, these findings offered very limited value. Despite the Japanese military's efforts to decode the messages, their orders explicitly directed them to capture American Marine communication personnel alive, believing that these individuals might possess or be able to provide key information about the code. Rewards of 10,000 yen, equivalent to 10 years' salary, were offered for any equipment or materials associated with the code talkers. Several close calls occurred during the campaigns, but ultimately no code talker was ever captured with their equipment intact, preserving the secrecy of their communications. The strategic significance of these Navajo code talkers became particularly evident during the Central Pacific Campaign. At the Battle of Tarawa in November 1943, 6 code talkers played a crucial role in maintaining communications over a grueling 76-hour period of intense combat. One of them, Lloyd Oliver, transmitted continuously for nearly 2 days, 48 hours in a relentless effort to coordinate naval gunfire and artillery support amidst constant enemy shelling. Similarly, during the Mariana Islands campaign, 24 Navajo code talkers worked tirelessly, operating around the clock at Saipan to ensure seamless communication. Lieutenant Commander Takashi Hirakawa, tasked with intercepting and decoding conventional Allied communications, had initially managed to anticipate the timing of the American landings. His team had successfully deciphered some tactical signals, which allowed the Japanese command to prepare defenses. However, once the Marines had landed and the fighting commenced, the flow of tactical intelligence from the intercepted communications abruptly ceased. Colonel Takashi Saito later observed that this loss of actionable intelligence left the Japanese commanders feeling suddenly and severely cut off from crucial battlefield information, undermining their strategic planning. One of the most remarkable stories involving the code talkers occurred at Palalo, when Jimmy King, despite the loss of his partner during a fierce counterattack, continued to transmit vital information for 6 hours. Under direct enemy fire, he coordinated artillery fire from 3 different battalions, sending 40 messages without a single error. His composure and accuracy under such extreme pressure exemplified the indispensable role of the Navajo code talkers. The Battle of Uoima marked perhaps the highest point of their contribution, where Major Howard Connor oversaw the entire initial assault using only the Navajo code. During the intense and tumultuous years of World War II, A remarkable group of individuals, known as the Navajo Code Talkers, played a pivotal role in ensuring the success of Allied military operations across the Pacific Theater. These Native Americans, fluent in their native language, were tasked with transmitting vital military messages under the most extreme conditions, and their efforts proved to be instrumental in the outcome of numerous battles, including some of the war's most critical moments. Over the course of their service, these code talkers successfully sent and received over 800 messages, all without a single error, a feat that speaks volumes about their skill, discipline, and the robustness of their coding system. Their messages encompassed a broad spectrum of battlefield communications, coordinating the landing of 30,000 Marines, directing naval gunfire from 100 ships, providing close air support, identifying enemy positions, organizing medical evacuations, delivering supplies and issuing tactical commands, often while under relentless enemy fire that threatened their lives and their mission. Their contribution was so vital that Major Connor later testified that without the Navajo Code Talkers, the Marines would have struggled immensely to secure their objectives on Iwima, a key island in the Pacific Campaign. Throughout the initial 48 hours of critical operations, I personally observed 6 Navajo radio nets functioning tirelessly around the clock, transmitting and receiving military instructions with impeccable accuracy. Over 800 messages processed flawlessly. The entire strategic operation was conducted using a code based on the Navajo language, a code that remained unbreakable by enemy forces. This security was so profound that Colonel Shigo Hayashi, a Japanese officer, reported to his superior, Kuribayashi, that American codes, particularly the Navajo-based ones, were beyond Japanese cryptanalytic capabilities. Requests for artillery support transmitted through Navajo radio channels, which could be fulfilled in as little as 20 seconds, would have otherwise taken over 30 minutes using conventional communication methods, time that often meant the difference between victory and defeat. This rapid response capability was crucial in transforming the tide of battles, enabling the destruction of enemy positions that otherwise might have held firm and cost the Allies dearly. At the Battle of Okinawa, one of the largest and bloodiest campaigns of the Pacific War, approximately 183,000 U.S. troops launched an extensive assault spanning over 82 days. During this campaign, the Japanese forces attempted to disrupt Allied communication by jamming radio signals and employing voice mimicry techniques. However, they could not replicate the unique tonal qualities of the Navajo language, nor could they decode the messages despite their efforts. Lieutenant Hiroshi Miyamoto, a Japanese officer, made repeated attempts to imitate the Navajo code, but according to code talker Alfred Newman, his efforts sounded more like someone goggling or making unintelligible noises, rather than mimicking the tonal intricacies of Navajo speech. This failure to decode or mimic the Navajo code underscored its unprecedented security and effectiveness. A watershed moment occurred on August 14, 1945, when code talker Teddy Draper relayed the war's most consequential message, Nehima Edijini Adenil, which translated to Japanese surrender. This message was transmitted through the Navajo code before reaching conventional communication channels, symbolically and practically marking the end of the code talkers' critical role in the conflict. Their work not only facilitated the swift conclusion of hostilities, but also provided a fitting and poetic culmination to their wartime service, an unbreakable code that contributed to victory and peace. Following the war, American military and intelligence officials uncovered the full extent of the Japanese efforts to decipher Allied communications and their complete failure to do so. Lieutenant General Chiso Arisu, who served as Japan's chief of intelligence, publicly admitted that the Japanese had not managed to break the Marine Code, despite their success in decrypting Army, Air Force, and diplomatic communications. He explained that Japanese linguists had meticulously recorded thousands of transmissions over 3 years, carefully studying them but to no avail. His admission highlighted the magnitude of the cryptanalytic failure, described as their greatest, since the Marine Tactical Code had proven impervious to all attempts at decryption. In the year 1944, analysts had suspected that the tonal patterns of the transmissions resembled indigenous American languages, prompting requests for assistance from German cryptanalysts. Yet due to wartime difficulties and German ignorance of the Navajo language, these efforts yielded no breakthroughs. Colonel Masao Yamada, a senior Japanese officer, acknowledged that the inability to interpret Marine communications had cost Japanese forces thousands of lives. The secretiveness of the code meant that every subsequent Marine operation after 1942 remained shrouded in mystery until it was underway, leaving Japanese commanders unable to anticipate or counter Allied movements effectively. This inability to decode the messages had dire consequences on the battlefield and contributed significantly to Japanese defeat. Survivor accounts, such as that of Major Hiroshi Tanaka, who participated in the WWII campaign, paint a vivid picture of the psychological toll wrought by the impenetrable code. Tanaka, a profound chapter in the history of military communication, one that transformed the way nations approach secrecy and linguistic ingenuity. This story begins with the Navajo warriors, who believed that their sacred language was not merely a means of everyday communication, but a powerful spiritual tool used to purify themselves from the corrupting influences of warfare. According to Dan Urke, a notable figure in this history, these warriors once employed their language to transmit deadly commands, effectively turning their words into weapons of war. However, as their understanding deepened, they recognized that language also possessed healing powers, and the ceremonies associated with it served as vital reminders that their words held sacred significance, capable of both destruction and healing. The pivotal moment came in the year of 1968 when this highly sensitive program was officially declassified, revealing the extraordinary role that the Navajo language played during the Second World War. The following year, in 1969, the first acknowledgement of this contribution took place during a reunion of the 4th Marine Division, where the importance of these code talkers was recognized informally among veterans. Yet it was not until the early 1980s that formal national recognition reached its peak. President Ronald Reagan, on the 14th of August in 1982, designated that day as National Navajo Code Talkers Day, honoring their unique service and the vital role they played. The most prominent tribute came later, on July 26th in the year 2001, when President George W. Bush awarded the original 29 Navajo Code Talkers with Congressional Gold Medals in a grand ceremony held within the Capitol Rotunda. Sadly, by that time, only 5 of the original veterans were still alive to attend the event, making their presence even more poignant. President Bush expressed heartfelt gratitude, stating, "Today we honor 29 Native Americans who provided a service only they could give to their country. Their efforts had been indispensable in securing victory, and their courage became a permanent testament to Native American resilience and ingenuity." Chester, one of the veterans, modestly responded, emphasizing that they were ordinary men tasked with an extraordinary mission. They used their sacred language not merely for everyday purposes, but as a clandestine code that helped turn the tide of war in favor of the Allies. While Navajo soldiers are the most celebrated, it is important to recognize that 14 other tribes also contributed code talkers, each bringing their unique languages into the military effort. The concept of using native languages for secure communication was pioneered during World War I by the Chopioneers, and in the subsequent conflict of World War II, 17 Comanche code talkers distinguished themselves in the European theater, most notably during the Normandy landings on D-Day. Beyond the Navajo, languages from the Hopi, Cherokee, Lakota, and numerous other tribes were also employed, demonstrating a broad and unified indigenous effort. The Recognition Act passed in 2008 further acknowledged the invaluable contributions of all tribes involved in this secretive and crucial work. John Brown Jr., a veteran and observer of these events, remarked, "They told us our language was no good. Then suddenly they needed it to win the war." This reversal underscored the profound sophistication inherent in Native American languages, which proved to be perfectly suited for military encryption. The Navajo Code Talkers not only created a practical military tool, but also demonstrated the remarkable adaptability and complexity of their language. They modernized Navajo in real time, developing grammatical structures and metaphors specifically for military purposes, transforming their language into a dynamic, encrypted code. Their agglutinative linguistic structure allowed them to encapsulate complex ideas into single words or brief phrases. What would require lengthy paragraphs in English could be conveyed with concise Navajo expressions. As Dr. William Morgan pointed out, Their work definitively proved that indigenous languages are far from primitive. Instead, they possess the capacity to express a vast range of concepts, from sacred ceremonies to the chaos of warfare. The Navajo Code introduced a form of cultural encryption that relied on linguistic barriers so intricate that no mathematical or mechanical encryption method could easily break it. This innovation in secure communication significantly influenced post-war intelligence strategies, laying a foundation for modern cryptography. Today, the relevance of their achievement persists as quantum computing and other advanced technologies threaten traditional mathematical encryption methods, forcing a reevaluation of how secure information is protected. Colonel David Hatch, an expert in military communication, noted that the Navajo Code represented something truly exceptional, an unbreakable cipher that remained secure despite the most intense efforts to decipher it. Their success demonstrated that human linguistic ingenuity could surpass even the most sophisticated mechanical encryption. In the 1980s, Japanese scholars undertook a detailed examination of their own failure to decipher the Navajo Code, leading to significant revelations. Professor Teo Yoshikawa disclosed that around 30 cryptanalysts worked exclusively on Navajo military transmissions over a span of 2 years, consulting multiple universities to crack the code. Captain Minoru Yamada revealed that by late 1943, Japanese intelligence had identified the code as Navajo, but had been throughout history, the concept of perfect encryption has always been a coveted goal, exemplifying the ultimate challenge in secure communication. Interestingly, even the most advanced cryptographers and intelligence experts from Asia, renowned for their exceptional skills, found themselves utterly defeated by a remarkable group of individuals whose native language and cultural heritage proved to be their greatest assets. These individuals were the Navajo Code Talkers, whose extraordinary contribution during a pivotal moment in world history showcased how diversity and cultural strength can serve as powerful tools in the most unexpected ways. Chester Nez, famously known as the last surviving member of the original group of 29 Navajo men who pioneered this groundbreaking effort, passed away on the 4th of June in the year 2014. Since his death, only 2 of the original Code Talkers remain alive, Thomas H. Bay and Peter McDonald. While neither of these two served from the very beginning, their roles proved to be just as vital in maintaining the operational effectiveness of the code. Notably, Peter McDonald continued to speak publicly well into his 96th year, embodying the enduring legacy of these brave men. The story of the Navajo Code Talkers vividly demonstrates the profound strength that comes from embracing cultural diversity within a nation. The multitude of languages and traditions that make up the fabric of America ultimately serve to bolster its resilience and strategic advantage. Once suppressed and marginalized, the Navajo language has now gained recognition as a crucial element of national security. Federal agencies have begun to reference the Code Talker story in their official documentation, emphasizing its significance. As a result, many young Native Americans now study their ancestral languages with renewed pride and purpose, understanding that these languages are not relics of the past but living resources with ongoing relevance. Dr. Jennifer Dennett-Dale, a noted scholar, observed that the Code Talkers fundamentally transformed how Native Americans perceive themselves and how the broader American society views Native communities. Their actions prove that indigenous languages are far from museum pieces. Instead, they are dynamic, living tools that can serve vital functions in contemporary contexts. The Navajo Code Talkers achieved what many consider the most exceptional feat in military history, crafting an unbreakable code that confounded Japanese intelligence throughout the entirety of World War II. Between 375 and 420 Navajo Marines served in this capacity, transmitting tens of thousands of messages under the most intense combat conditions, all without a single error. However, the deeper significance of their achievement extends beyond military tactics. It symbolizes a powerful statement about identity, resilience, and the strategic value of cultural diversity. Native American men utilized their native language, one that the U.S. government had historically attempted to eradicate, to defend their nation. These young men from marginalized communities displayed capabilities and ingenuity that even the most sophisticated allies could not replicate. Their victory was not just tactical but symbolic. It revealed a fundamental blindness on the part of Japan's military strategists. The Japanese military had prepared for American technology and conventional codes, but they had failed to account for the richness of American diversity, languages and cultures they could not access or understand. This oversight was critical. The Japanese Empire, which proclaimed racial superiority as a core element of its ideology, was ultimately defeated in part because it underestimated the strength inherent in human diversity. Lieutenant General Arisui's admission that Japan had never cracked the code used by the Marines underscores how they faced an opponent whose power derived from incomprehensible and unbreakable sources rooted in the very fabric of human culture. The code talkers embodied a uniquely American strength, one that Japan's ideology could neither comprehend nor counter, proving that the nation's greatest asset was its diversity of peoples, languages, and traditions. Interestingly, the very institutions that once sought to suppress the Navajo language, such as boarding schools designed to eradicate indigenous cultures, became key allies in achieving victory in the Pacific Theater. Today, as the last of the Navajo code talkers pass into history, their legacy continues to resonate. The language, once forbidden and devalued, is now taught with pride across Native communities and educational institutions alike. Native American veterans are being recognized for their service at some of the highest per capita rates among all American groups, highlighting a profound transformation in societal appreciation and acknowledgement. The strategic importance of diversity in strengthening national security has become an accepted doctrine in modern America. The voices that spoke Navajo across the Pacific battlefields carried a message that transcended mere military tactics. It demonstrated that America's strength is rooted in its multiplicity of voices and cultures. Different peoples and languages, united in their purpose, became an indomitable force, proving that differences, far from being weaknesses, are assets worth celebrating, preserving, and deploying for the cause of freedom. The Japanese intelligence officers who failed to decipher the code understood this truth profoundly. Their defeat was not merely a tactical loss, but a recognition of a fundamental reality that extends beyond warfare itself. Some codes are unbreakable, not solely because of their mathematical or technological complexity, but because they are embedded in the infinite and intricate diversity of human cultures. The messages transmitted by the original code talkers remained indecipherable to Japan, their secrets guarded tightly and never fully unraveled. Yet the most profound message they conveyed transcended language barriers and national borders. It was a message rooted in the fundamental truth that diversity itself is a wellspring of strength. The richness of various cultures provides us with power, and indigenous knowledge, when harnessed thoughtfully, can serve contemporary needs and innovations. In a striking example of this principle, young Navajo men employed their sacred language not merely as a tool for communication, but as a weapon of defense during critical moments in history. At the same time, they transformed it into an instrument of peace and cultural resilience, demonstrating that the very essence of their language and heritage could be a force for both protection and reconciliation. This powerful act of employing ancestral tongue as a means of safeguarding and upholding peace reaffirmed an enduring truth, that America's most formidable form of encryption, its unbreakable code, resides in its diversity. This diversity is inherently unbreakable because it originates from the boundless spectrum of human experience, wisdom, and ingenuity. It reflects the collective strength derived from a multitude of perspectives, languages, and histories. The legacy of the code talkers remains alive and unbroken, embedded in every native child who speaks their ancestral language with pride. It is evident in the recognition that contributions from minority communities bolster national identity and enrich the collective fabric of society. The understanding that differences among us can be a source of strength rather than division continues to grow and inspire. Through their actions, the code talkers demonstrated that our variations, our differences, are not weaknesses but powerful assets to be celebrated and cherished. Their example stands as eternal proof that a multitude of voices, peoples, and languages, when united by a common purpose, can forge an unbreakable code of freedom and resilience. It's a testament to the idea that diversity, when embraced, becomes the very foundation of strength, unity, and enduring liberty for all.